メジャー翻訳速報。メジャーリーグでは今、日本の若手エース佐々木朗希投手の去就に注目が集まっています。ドジャースには大谷翔平選手、山本由伸選手が在籍し、パドレスにはダルビッシュ有選手と両チームともに日本人選手が揃う中での獲得競争となっています。まだ23歳という若さでメジャー挑戦を決意した佐々木投手について、現地メディアの反応をお届けします。このチャンネルでは日本人メジャーリーガーに関する現地放送局の様子を翻訳してお届けいたします。お見逃しのないよう今のうちにチャンネル登録をお願いします。
Who goes to the head of the class? This is neat. That's a nice little animation for kicking off a new segment here. A little idea that we're hatching that's been picked up by our social media department, which is really great. We thought it appropriate, being Hall of Fame week, that we look at each class and try to come up with something that's very difficult to do and very subjective, and determine if there's a class that's better than another, and maybe whittling it through bracket style to figure out what's the most distinguished Hall of Fame class in the history of the building. So kind of an arbitrary start point. We're not going to go to the 1936 group with Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb. We're starting in 1960. So that's the first year that we thought an eligible class would make our field of 16. We put them into a bracket. Here it is. This has been posted on our social channels for the last couple of days, and we've actually had some fan participation here. But first, let's go through our first bracket, Harold.
All right, let's do it.
And that's top left, class of 2015 against the class of 2022. Here's the 15 group. It's going to be hard to beat.
Okay.
Biggio, Unit, Pedro Smoltz, all of these guys, recent super duper stars in the sport, certainly pitching centric. It's against the class of 2022. The big name here was Big Papi, David Ortiz.
Gil Hodges.
Gil Hodges is in there, Tony Oliva, Jim Cott, Buck O'Neill, who should have been put into Cooperstown years earlier. There are more names here because of a Veterans Committee vote, but the higher combined WAR belongs to the class of 2015. This is hard to do, but make a case for one of them.
Well, I mean, 2015, that's a dominant class. I think they're going to go a long ways in this. You got depth in the pitching staff. You got a 3,000 hit guy in Biggio. They're going a long ways. And we're talking about not just depth in the pitching. John Smoltz, starter closer, probably the best in the history of the sport doing what he did.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at Pedro and Randy, a righty and a lefty at the top of their heap. So that's going to be hard to beat. But the unknown is the other bracket. And I think when you start looking at the guys that were brought up by the committee, going back and reaching back into the past and bringing them forward, you got great stories. And so I think in this case, the stories may not beat the production on the field.
That's a good point. And I think, you could say that this might be the best ever pitching class.
Yeah.
And then you put Biggio in there as window dressing, a 3,000 hit guy, and it becomes pretty tough to beat. Keith, do you have some insights on this bracket?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Matty. 9 combined Cy Youngs for that pitching trio that we saw in the 2015 group. But I think the other class is kind of the perfect example of how to look at it from a different perspective. You look at guys like Hodges, our friend Kitty, Minnie Minoso, certainly Buck O'Neill. Those are great baseball lives, not just what they did between the white lines. Those are guys that had a variety of roles, and their impacts went beyond just their contributions on the field. So I'd lean 2015 for this exercise, but sort of a perfect example of how there's different ways to skin a cat here.
Great point. What did the fans think about this? Because, again, this contest is posted on the social channels, and it wasn't close because there's certainly, I think, a recency bias with fans that use social media for things like this. It's the class of 2015 that's going to be moving on in the bracket.
I'll get here Jim Cott now, though. Give me the ball!
I pitched for 27 years, you kids. Let's go back to the bracket for our next discussion, and that will pit, it's an 8-9 matchup, the class of 1974 versus the class of 1973. And here we go. These were the members of those classes, starting with the 74 group. A lot of Veterans Committee votes here. Jocko Conlon as an umpire doesn't affect the WAR, of course. But between Ford and Mantle, you had 30 All-Star games and 13 World Series rings.
And cool Papa Bell, when you throw his Negro League statistics in there that are now viewed, one of the best players in the Negro League history.
And it brings the WAR up to 282. By the way, Mantle 88% is what his vote total was. I mean, it's a joke that 12% of the voters didn't put him in on the first ballot. All right, so that group is head-to-head with the 73 group, highlighted by Roberto Clemente, who was a part of the 1973 Hall of Fame class because he passed away the previous December. He was still an active player. Nobody thought they'd be putting Roberto Clemente into the Hall of Fame so soon, but his tragic death just a few months prior to that put him in the group of 1973.
The two standouts outside of Clemente to me were Monty Irvin and Warren Spahn. You know, Monty Irvin, he came through the Negro League, so you don't see his major league numbers as great. But, man, when he got to the Giants and he took off and won titles and everything else, he and Willie Mays and what they're able to do, another huge figure in the sport of baseball.
Don't sleep on George High Pockets Kelly, by the way. Possibly one of the greatest nicknames out there, right? New York Giant legend, among other teams. Keith, what do you have on the 8-9 part of the bracket here?
Yeah, H, you took the words right out of my mouth. We didn't see Monty Irvin playing for the Giants until he was 30 years old. Spahn also lost time, much different circumstances, obviously, during World War II. I would probably lean towards that class, though, if I had to pick between this 8-9 matchup.
All right, we're curious what the social channels yielded from this. What do you think first? Do you have any thoughts on this one? This is tough.
I think the one we just talked about with Monty Irvin and Clemente and them, they lose. I think the other one wins on social media.
So you think 74 will win
74.
With Mantle and Whitey Ford?
Yeah.
Let's see how many.
Mantle's going to carry it.
See how many Yankee fans. This was close, man. But your instincts were correct with nearly 60% of the vote. That Yankee dominant class with those two names beats out the group with Spahn and Clemente.
I mean, immediately you turn on, you see those two names, you go check.
Yeah, we're going to keep this going all week.
Ford and Mickey Mantle.
And we'll finish out the left side of the bracket tomorrow. We do know that two classes are moving on. The class of 74 with Mantle and Ford, and the class of 2015 with Smoltz and Pedro and Biggio and Eunice. It's going to be a lot of fun to do.
That is Ronald Acuna Jr. He's working out.
He's back.
He's got that swing. Look at mid-season form.
I'll tell you what, when you healthy, you ain't worried about nothing, Greg. That's the swings you get. You just feel good, right?
He had a 40-70 season 2 years ago. 40-70!
And I'm expecting him to get back there.
So if he's back and Ohtani's pitching, and all I'm saying
is,
this is a developing story, folks. We may have the greatest MVP race we've ever seen in the MLB Network era since 2009. Let's dive into it. Shohei Ohtani's a 50-50 player, Cliff. He's going to be a starting pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers this year, Cliff.
Right.
That's new.
Yeah, that's new, but I'll tell you what, I mean, I'm looking forward to him getting back out there on the mound because he wants it so bad. You can see him, right? You can just see him. He can taste it.
Hey, guess who's sitting behind Francisco Lindor this year?
Juan Soto.
You think that's going to change the pitch selection that this MVP candidate's going to get?
The whole landscape of it. Like,
could Francisco Lindor be a 40-40 shortstop?
For sure.
Do you know who could be a 40-40 second baseman? Ketel Marte. He was flirting with that before he got injured. We got to remind ourselves, this is a superstar player for the Diamondbacks.
I mean, and you know what? When you watch him, I wonder always, I'm like, how does he generate so much pop? But, man, that dude is strong. That's a strong human.
We didn't see this last year. Mookie Betts is a full-time shortstop.
Whatever
healthy,
it takes to win.
Mookie Betts hitting 40 bombs at shortstop.
That's a winning player. We always talk about guys and, like, do you really want to win? Like where is it? Look, Mookie will do anything to win, and there it is right there.
Can he steal 80 bases, though? No. This guy can. L.A. De La Cruz.
80?
He could be 40-80.
He will have to get, like, some gives with that. Like, is it strike? Like, you think he's
getting better and better, man.
All right. I'm not gonna knock it.
How about opening day? Paul Skeens has the ball. Full season of Paul Skeens.
I saw him in spring training, like I said last segment, and I thought, oh goodness gracious alive, this dude. He looked me dead in my eyes. He goes, "There's nothing else to prove. I will be a star in this league for a long time." I was like, okay.
Sub-2 ERA in this modern game could be an MVP and Cy Young.
Solid.
Oh, we got Ronald Acuna Jr. back. I'm gonna be honest with you. He is livid that Ohtani became the first 50-50 player.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. He told me he wanted to be 50-50. He's coming out, and he's putting up 50-50 this year for the Braves. Oh, he's back.
Yep.
Kyle Tucker, full season, north side of Chicago?
Yeah, now that's going to be scary. Now, I know he had a ballpark in Houston where he could do some things. When that wind is blowing out at Wrigley, in the Central, NL Central.
Star in Chicago?
Yikes.
Kyle Tucker's in the mix.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, we can't forget this guy. Juan Soto is playing for the New York Mets. He's in the National League again. I mean, this is bananas.
It's going to be something to watch, Greg. I'm looking forward to it, but this is the one I can't wait to see how it unfolds. I don't know if they're going to get Pete back, but when you look at Juan Soto in that lineup behind Lindor and what they're going to bring every single day.
Now, look at this.
Look at that, man.
Vegas odds has Fernando Tatis Jr. third. Bryce Harper is sitting, what, seventh? Those guys didn't even make the list of players we just showed you.
Well, Fernando Tatis is the guy on this list that needs a shakeup, right? You just can't play 102 games and that be enough. So I don't know where they get the numbers. Maybe they're just throwing out, a little filler for us to, jump on or whatever. Greg, something has to happen this offseason. I want to see his swings before we get to camp. I want to see something where I'm like, all right, I'm in. Because he is right now like 10th as far as right fielders in my head.
Whoa. Talent-wise, he's like top three.
What's talent do for you?
I like talent a lot. I'm a big fan of talent. Yeah. That was a lot of talent on that screen. It's going to be an epic NL MVP race in 2025.
Roki Sasaki, the Japanese import, the prized Japanese import, who is coming over earlier than his expiration date allows for, which means he's going to sign a reasonable 6-year contract with a major league employer.
$3 to $4 million.
You're the steal of the century. We're talking
steal.
about an Ohtani type theft here. He has limited his group of suitors after having eliminated a bunch of teams yesterday. We have exclusive video on who was eliminated and how it went down. Here it was. All the suitors presented themselves, Harold, in the court of Sasaki, gladiator style. And there's Roki eyeing up the suitors, and he said to this group of suitors, Sayonara. No thanks, Mets. No thanks, Cubs. Here's who's still in it, according to Jeff Passan. The finalists, the Dodgers, shocker, the Padres, and the Blue Jays, according to sources telling ESPN. Sasaki will decide on his team by the closing of the posting period on the 23rd. He traveled to San Diego, per Dennis Lin of The Athletic, to meet with the Padres after last week's visit to Toronto. So we're led to believe now, and of course, Will Salmon and Ken Rosenthal credited with that information too. We're led to believe he's met in person with all three of those teams, Toronto, San Diego, Los Angeles. Sift through the suitors for me. I know that you've been saying Dodgers all along. Can you make any kind of a case for the other two teams?
Well, Toronto's been in it for every major free agent out there, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sure he got the Shohei Ohtani treatment, which was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. All the things they laid out that is happening in the international city of Toronto. I do believe that most Japanese players and most international players, if I went to somewhere else would be international for me, I would want to try to find people that I can help navigate through. I'm looking for more Americans. He's probably looking for more Japanese culture.
Okay.
So Toronto expressed that, showed that, did a great job. I just don't think he's going to end up there. I think the one thing you would want if Matt or Harold went to play in another country, you want somebody you can have a companionship with, right? Talk to and go to the ballpark and play on the same team with. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he has that in Toronto. I know that exists in San Diego and in L.A.
Yeah.
San Diego, Yu Darvish, believe it or not, is the king. Whether it's Ohtani or whether it's
he's
Sasaki,
the OG. He's the OG.
He is the OG.
He's got
man.
4 more years on his deal there.
Yes. So he's got 4 more years in San Diego. They love him, all the Japanese players. He was kind of that guy, right, for them. But in L.A., he's got 2 of his current heroes. You got Ohtani, who's the most popular Japanese player on the planet right now, and Yamamoto, who is his pitching partner on that picture we just saw there on their Japanese WBC team. This guy's the youngster that they all put their arm around. He's only 23. And so we get a chance to see him at the WBC, but all that time, this is a close-knit. They're planning and getting ready for the Olympics, you know, in 28 for the softball teams and all that. They practice and travel together. U.S., we're playing in colleges. We're all over the place. We're in the MLB, you're doing your season.
Right.
We're riding together as a team, and here's what we're doing in team workouts. They've taken this youngster at 18 and said, come with me. Here's how I do it. Let's go eat. Let's spend time. So they've developed that relationship. He has that going with the guys in L.A. That's my long take.
That's your case for the Dodgers. I'm going to make my case for the Padres.
All right, let me hear it.
First of all, they haven't done anything this winter, as this board would illustrate. It feels like because of this, because of the relative inactivity, and a lot of people have discounted this by saying it's because they had so many outstanding contractual obligations.
We got that full screen
built additions, 0. Why? Because they're putting all their eggs in the Roki Sasaki basket. Do you think it's a coincidence that AJ Preller learned how to speak Japanese recently? He has been working for this moment. He's mysterious. He's Willy Wonka. First of all, he looks like Willy Wonka. Secondly, pure imagination. It's pure imagination to think you could poach this guy from the Dodgers' clutches. I think he goes to San Diego. I also think that if you're the player and you're being courted by each city, you land in L.A., it's a series of connected sub-communities and subdivisions and cities. It's big. It's difficult to get your head around. You land in San Diego. You land at General Mitchell Airport. The drive to the ballpark is around the water. You're like, wow, what is this place? This is pretty magical. Take them up to La Jolla, have lunch at George's on the Cove, right? I think that the romancing is easy when you're San Diego, especially with a general manager that speaks Japanese.
What is Dave Roberts? Half what?
Half Japanese.
Hello.
He doesn't speak much Japanese,
Doesn't
though.
have to. Where are they starting the season this year? In where? Japan. They're going to Tokyo.
Oh, I can't wait to see where this dude signs, because I think I'm right.
Your first big league series. I am no doubt he's the Dodger.
All right, the Pods are going to surprise. We'll circle back.
That's good.
メジャー翻訳速報。大リーグの移籍市場が本当に面白い展開になってきましたね。特に注目は佐々木朗希投手の動向です。パドレスの AJ プレラー GM が日本語を学んでまでアプローチしているという熱意には驚かされました。一方のドジャースには大谷翔平選手、山本由伸投手という日本人スター選手がいて、すでに強い絆が築かれているようです。特に大谷選手は来シーズンの投打の活躍が期待されていて、開幕から目が離せません。皆さんはどちらのチームに佐々木投手が移籍すると予想されますか？コメント欄で皆さんのご意見をお聞かせください。それでは次回の動画でお会いしましょう。ご視聴ありがとうございました。